This week, 7:30 broke the story of UniSuper and the funding gap in its misnamed defined benefits division. Tens of thousands of its members could have their benefits cut, but a fight back has begun. The National Tertiary Education Union capitulated to a decision 5 years ago that paved the way for benefit reductions. Now it's demanding employers pay up and preparing to back its call with an industrial campaign. Stephen Long reports.
John Odgers works at RMIT in Melbourne. He's one of more than 80,000 people from universities nationwide who face the threat of losing retirement benefits they thought were safe and secure. He joined UniSuper's defined benefits fund a decade ago, thinking that as a defined benefit scheme, it was fully backed by the employer and insulated from market risk.
That statement that the fund bears the risk certainly played a large part in my own decision to stay with the defined benefits fund.
4 years later, he was a staff rep on the fund's consultative committee when UniSuper changed its trust deed in a way that shifted all the risk from the employers to the workers.
In the 2006 meeting, one of the amendments was to simplify the arrangements if the trust didn't have enough money in the future. And that seemed to be a fairly administrative matter, which I don't think many people looked at very seriously at the time.
It was a very serious matter. The removal of a clause requiring the trustee to call upon employers to top up the fund in the event of a shortfall.
That clause was taken out. The net effect was that if the trustees were advised the fund in future didn't have enough money to pay all the pension entitlements and so on and so forth of retired members, that it would have to reduce the benefits to the members in the future. I think, to put it mildly, I was very angry. I stood up and I asked the union rep, and we won't mention any names, but I asked the NTU rep why the amendment was being put forward, and did he understand the impact of that on not only me but all the tens of thousands of members who may in retirement lose some of their benefits.
He was told it would require unanimous agreement of all the employers to top up any shortfall in the fund, so the clause was unworkable.
I basically said, well, look, I'm still angry and I don't think that that's the only solution. We need to look at alternatives. Did we look at alternatives?
The General Secretary of the National Tertiary Education Union agrees there were alternatives that should have been pursued.
The board should not have contemplated changes to the trust deed that didn't involve the ability to have fair and equitable adjustment measures that don't involve cutting employee entitlements.
In its submission to the superannuation system review last year, UniSuper hailed its defined benefits plan as a model for the future, one that gave employees a reasonable probability of achieving their benefits target without burdening the employer with an open-ended obligation. UniSuper acknowledged that defined benefits didn't accurately describe the scheme, saying it was more like a collective pension scheme or a collective defined contribution plan. But it added in a footnote that the label defined benefit was an important historical legacy and a source of brand identification among members.
The core characteristic of a defined benefit fund is that the employer bears the risk.
The defined benefit scheme, you are right, it is the benefits are based on a salary-related formula. But I need to make it quite clear, UniSuper never guaranteed that formula, nor was there a requirement for the employers to top up the contributions in an event of a shortfall of funding.
So how could UniSuper market it as a defined benefits fund?
Well, the benefits are still defined based on a defined benefit formula.
Catch-22. But now, belatedly, the union is fighting back.
It's plain that we can't accept any proposition that involves a reduction in benefits as the way of meeting any potential shortfall in the scheme. We want UniSuper board and management to convene an urgent conference of all stakeholders who've got an interest in UniSuper with a view to developing an amended trust deed formulation that will protect employee entitlements in the scheme and ensure that there's a fair and equitable set of measures to meet the shortfall.
A demand likely to be backed by an industrial campaign during enterprise bargaining negotiations next year.
Stephen Long reporting.